Getting into the top props in NBA today to use with Taco Tuesday. Let's get into it. So as always, I kind of like to preview the board that's available. And really, to me, the best props that we are going to get today are going to be looking at the NBA playoffs. And so that's really what I'm going to be touching on in this video. So let's go ahead and start with my 3 favorite props for the day. So one unique part that I like about this update that I made with including Underdog in the 9 to 5 PrizePicks cheat sheet as well is that we can see the difference between the two companies, PrizePicks and Underdog. So one of my favorite props is actually going to be looking at Donovan Mitchell over 36.5 points and assists, and that's going to be on PrizePicks, but I want to use Underdog as an example, just showing that they have it set at 37.5. So on Underdog, it's going to be about a 49% chance for the over to hit, but when we shift this over on the PrizePicks where we're getting a full point difference, that is huge. And sure, he did go off in the last game, and that's kind of what worries me about that, about him not getting there, is that he played heavy minutes. That's great, and did have a lot of shots, 30 shot attempts. He could get there just on points alone. We kind of know that. And my biggest worry is that if we are betting this, like, we could almost just go ahead and bet fantasy score for over. Like, to me, that makes just as much sense, because if he's playing those heavy minutes and shooting that many times, it's tough not to see him get there. But on paper, this is going to be one of the best props that we're getting. So it's really for you guys to decide which one you want to use. But both those two seem pretty appealing to me. And then also sticking with some fantasy score props that we were getting, let's go ahead and look at some of them. So when using the sportsbook odds, we can see for fantasy score, that is, we can see that we are getting some favorable props fantasy score wise based off of how the sportsbooks are projecting this game to go, or these games to go. So I think 2 that we could roll with would be Zubac over fantasy score. And we can see if we take the average of the sportsbook odds that we're getting for points, rebounds, assists, blocks, steals, turnovers, that it would actually be favoring the over fantasy score here. And that's going to be at around 30 is what they're averaging his fantasy score at. So this is very much an appealing prop. And to me, what's most appealing, if you guys remember from last video, I thought this was a pretty solid prop that we were getting, but I didn't feel comfortable with the minutes that we were getting for sure. He ended up playing 30 minutes in the last game. And if that continues tonight, it's going to be tough to imagine him not being able to get over 25 fantasy points. He does average about a fantasy point per minute. And so if he gets 30, again, like, it's going to be tough to see him not getting there. And that was without any blocks or steals. Now, he doesn't always get a block or steal, but we can see he does average 1.3. So if he does get a block tonight, it's going to be much easier for him to get that over fantasy score, because remember, PrizePicks values blocks a little bit more than some of the other sites. They value it as 3 points. So in theory, if those minutes are still there, should be a good one. And that's also kind of why I like Jarrett Allen. Dude had a lot of minutes in that last game. And maybe that's just what Cleveland's going to do. They're going to give their starters a ton of minutes. And if that continues, Jarrett Allen and even Evan Mobley as well, that's kind of the tough part, is that they typically do not coincide good games together, and that's kind of my biggest worry, is that if, you know, Mobley has a good game, then it's going to be tough to imagine Jarrett Allen not having a good game. But look at him as well. He is someone that didn't get a block or steal, had a turnover, and so you would imagine that he'd be able to get a block in this game as well. If he's going to be playing those heavy minutes, he's going to be an appealing play as well. I think the question we would have would be, what would be the best prop? Well, on paper right now, it would suggest that'd be fantasy score. Do expect him to be able to get a lot of rebounds. Like, look at this. He's projected to get 10 rebounds, okay, 13.5 points. And if he gets a block or a steal, then he should be able to get the over fantasy score with ease. So those are my 3 favorite props on the day. Now let's talk about some kind of just interesting game stacks we could potentially run out as well, because I do think there's a good opportunity for that today as well. And maybe if you guys want to include that with your taco, you could do that. So we had Boston play a lot of heavy minutes for a lot of their players, and one of those players was actually Al Horford. And man, it's going to be kind of tough to imagine Al Horford lasting a whole playoff run, like if they go deep. I think they're currently the favorites to win the championship right now. Tough to kind of imagine, actually, but it's interesting. I don't see him averaging over 35 minutes in the playoffs. Like, is he going to hold up? I just don't see that happening. But at the same time, based off of the information that we have, he did play 38 minutes in the last game, and so I'm going to assume that he's going to get a lot of minutes again. And if he does get a lot of minutes again, it's going to be tough not to like him in some capacity. Now, he's not going to be someone that shoots the ball a lot, but guys, last game he only shot the ball 4 times. They're all 3-ball attempts. Kind of strange there. Went 2 for 4 from 3-ball. Like, you would expect him to get a few more other shot attempts, and so maybe he does get a little bit more points. Like, it's strange that he played 38 minutes, only had 4 shot attempts, and only scored 6 points. Like, that seems strange, but he did have good rebounds, had 2 blocks and a steal. Like, we don't expect that to happen again as well. Maybe just hoping for 1. But the thing is, if he's going to be getting those minutes, like, it does seem like we could be looking at a good prop for him, whether it is fantasy fantasy score, whether it's points, rebounds, and assists, like that's a big difference. 8 points difference between fantasy score and blocks, points, and steals. Like I think I'd rather, or points, rebounds, and assists. I think I'd rather go with this one than I would fantasy score, even though he didn't get there last game. Just because I think, you know, if he's playing that heavy minutes, it's tough to imagine him not getting more actual point. Now, this one is going to be tight, and it's probably only one that I would use in a game stack, and it would be Jalen Brown over 3.5 assists. And I just want to point this out. Like, he is someone that does give us a good chance to get there basically every single game. And if we look back further on his game log, we will see that be true. Let's look at his assists. Just like going back forever, for the most part, he is getting at least 3 or 4 per game. And now, yeah, if we continue to go back, not as much so, but he does average 3.5 on the season. It's kind of given the fact that he only had 3 assists last game, I kind of expect him to be able to get the over in this game. And the minutes were heavy for him as well, 37 minutes in that game. So seems like an appealing prop. Now, the only issue I have is that they actually shot the ball pretty well from 3-ball range. And so the fact that he didn't get there, well, the team shot decently well, that does worry me slightly. And then lastly, I do want to point out another Boston player that played heavy minutes. And I found this interesting. And to me, it wouldn't be shocking to see some of these minutes go in favor of Malcolm Brogdon. And I know this is a hot take, and I'm a Bucks fan. He's a former Bucks player. But to me, like, Malcolm Brogdon's like their 3rd best player. And I know it's a hot take. Don't go crazy with that, guys. But he is a really good, efficient basketball player. And it's just strange. And I know he was terrible, 1 for 6. And that could easily be why they defaulted to Derek White. Okay. And I get that. So this is very situational. Okay. And this is the tough part about the playoffs. I could see Brogdon getting 28 minutes. Thus, the heavy minutes that Derek White got last game, I could see that coming down. Like, I'm reading it as Brogdon had a bad night shooting. Thus, Derek White got the minutes. Whereas I would say majority of the time, it's going to be in the middle of that. So if that happens, obviously Derek White wouldn't be a good prop. And then actually, I'm not sure if we are getting any Malcolm Brogdon props. Okay, we are. So this is kind of a situation in which I think we're doing one or the other. Okay, we could use recency bias and go with Derek White, or we could also go Malcolm Brogdon and say, all right, he had a bad game, still was able to get 12 points, rebounds, and assists. Should have a much better game. Should be able to get more minutes. And now that I'm talking about it, like, I was actually going to go in on Derek White today. I kind of think I like Brogdon a little bit more. Like, he just shot the ball terrible, and I'm reading in that as that's why he didn't get minutes. But obviously, if those minutes are actually just true and it wasn't just because Brogdon had a terrible night shooting, then White should be able to get this over. Interesting there. Any Boston fans feel like they have a better feel in that? I'm actually curious. And Marcus Smart played himself a good game as well. So it's kind of just like ride the hot hand there. It's like a 3-headed backfield in football where you just ride the hot. That's kind of what they have going there. And then just real quickly, it does seem like we are getting a great opportunity with the New York Knicks. So Jalen Brunson would be one of my favorite props today if we got news that he was not getting his minutes limited. And the thing with it is they might have to give him minutes in general. And let's talk about that. So let's look at this. Jalen Brunson in the last game, as you know, you could say their best player, second best player, only played 30 minutes. That's because he's recovering from a hand injury. And I don't really know why that would really limit his minutes. That one to me seems strange. But he still, I mean, we saw on PrizePicks, he still was 0.1 off a game is over, while averaging, or we're only getting 30 minutes. Let's just look this up on this cheat sheet here. And so we can see his projected minutes are 34.42. Now, that's something that I sourced. That's something I paid for. I don't exactly know what goes into projected minutes, but that is, you know, about 4.4 more minutes than what he got in the last game. And so if he does get that, yeah, his projection would be much higher than that. And so why might he be forced into getting those minutes? Let's talk about that. Well, Josh Hart is someone that they acquired mid-season, and he's been playing some heavy minutes. He played 33 minutes in the last game. Now he's doubtful. And so if he's sit, they might be forced into giving Brunson those minutes because they typically shift to a little bit of a smaller unit. Okay, it's Randall, it's Barrett, it's Brunson. We know that. Then it's Quentin Grimes getting minutes, and I actually don't mind him prop-wise. It depends on the ones that we get out there for him today, because the only one we have there right now is free throws made, and I guess you could roll with that. He does average 1.2 free throws made per 36 with Josh Hart off the court this season. And so, yeah, all it takes is one. I'd be fine with that, I guess. And then after Quentin Grimes getting minutes, it's Quickly who gets a lot of minutes as well. And that's like that's the core right there, is those 5. So whereas Quickly might have been spelling Brunson a little bit, it seems like they're going to be forced into getting those 2 on the court at the same time. So I could see Quickly's minutes actually going up a little bit, but that's why Brunson could be forced into more minutes. So to me, I don't mind betting on him getting more minutes. I kind of like and it's just a couple more days to be healthy. So in conclusion, these are going to be my favorite bets for the day. I mentioned these ones. These are the two most favorable props that we were getting on the day, just looking at the sportsbook odds. And then also this one as well, just given the fact that there is a discrepancy between sportsbooks and Underdog. Like PrizePicks is currently undervaluing, while the sportsbooks are I shouldn't say overvaluing. The sportsbooks are valuing the over at 37.5. So that's a pretty good prop that we were getting there. And then Al Horford, if he's going to be playing those heavy minutes, I don't mind, but I would much rather use Horford and even Brown in a game stack. That'd be the route that I would want to go. And so maybe one of the tacos that comes out today is going to be a taco that has someone from this Atlanta-Boston game. That's where we would want to use these, okay, is if that occurs. I'd feel much more comfortable with that. And then Brunson, I really like this one as well. If we know that those minutes are going to be there and increase in minutes, and it's like New York, I kind of expect him to get 38 minutes. It was very strange to see him only get 30. So it wouldn't be surprising to see him get a lot more minutes. And if he does, he's going to be a very appealing prop as well. But that's all for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, give a like and subscribe. If you guys want access to that PrizePicks and Underdog cheat sheet, it's available for 9 to 5 site members for $10 a month. Let's have a good slate. And as always, let's keep cashing.